The referee's a podcast with Jack and Kelly too. Scottish Championship last, they give us the show. Footy tales from the pitch, controversies they scratch. Every moment they'll itch, no call left to batch.
Here we go again. We're back. It is the Referees a Podcast, the premier Scottish Championship podcast. We're back at you once again this week, bringing you all the best coverage of the Scottish Championship from a couple of very uninformed people. Myself, Cameron Smith, my colleague here next to me, Jack Curry. Say something to these lovely folks.
Hello, listeners, viewers at home. I hope you're doing well. I hope the December month has been treating you really, really nicely so far. Cam, how you feeling? Are you into the Christmas spirit yet? Is the Christmas tree up at home?
Yeah, all the Christmas decorations and that are up. And the one thing I will say is usually I get a little bit, it's not that I don't like Christmas music. I don't care for it one way or another usually, but I do feel like generally speaking it's overplayed, which it is, but you get it, it's Christmas. But I've actually been, enjoying it a bit more this year, jigging away along to the songs, a wee whistle or a click, So yeah, no, that's, I suppose I am probably more Christmassy and cheery jolly this year than in previous years, so that's nice. What about you? It looks very un-Christmassy over there as well,
Oh yeah, I've got no tree in my flat, so I don't know. I've no bothered with that. I looked at the trees this year, and then I was like, am I really going to spend maybe 40 or 50 quid on having a tree just to go, a tree? Which is very un-Christmassy. I like Christmas though, to be fair, but I'll have a bit of tree back home. So there will be when I go back, obviously up the road and stuff like that. So I'm not that black-hearted, listeners. But no, I'm looking forward to it, Cam. Feels like we're getting close. I think today, as of recording, 2 weeks to Christmas.
Oh,
so
of course
that's
it
exciting
is.
stuff. It's coming up soon. So listeners at home, I hope you're all doing well. And question of the day, right? I'm going to start off early with a question. Usually I do this later on.
Okay.
But listeners, what's your favourite Christmas song? I think that's a good one to get us started, Cam. Have you got anything that you want to contribute? Favourite Christmas song? You were talking, you've been jigging away a wee bit so far.
I struggle with names for them. Let me think. Well, that's the big famous one. I know they're all famous, but the New York one, Fairy Tale in New York.
Fairy Tale in New York, yeah, I love Fairy Tale in New York. That's a classic.
That's a cracker.
That's a classic.
It's a cracker.
Yeah. Jingle Bell Rock.
Well, so that's the only one.
Rock.
That's the only other one that I could think of the name of, and I don't rate that one quite so highly. I think that one specifically is quite overplayed, and I want to say dull, but I don't know if it's just because I've heard it so many times. I'm like, oh, right, okay, rocking around the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
It's just a bit, ugh.
I'm trying to think. There's a couple in Home Alone that were really good.
Yeah, Home Alone's just good in general.
It is. But anyway, right, we could sit and talk about all of this all day, but we need to remember, Cam, we are a football podcast.
This isn't even the Christmas podcast either, This is...
No, this is the pre-Christmas podcast, or whatever
Speaking
it's
of,
going to be. So,
well, it would be Christmas Eve, wouldn't it? That we would potentially podcast. Would it be Christmas Eve? No,
it probably would be. It might even would it be Christmas Day?
Well, it'd be 2 weeks from today, but we're recording a day later than usual.
But yeah, it would be Christmas Eve. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that.
Trying to look at the calendar. I've upgraded to Windows 11, so I'm still trying to find some things. Found the calendar now though. So Christmas Eve would be the Wednesday. Yeah. So if we are doing one on Christmas, we'll let you folks know. But it will be coming out on Christmas Day.
That would be our gift to everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Exactly. But talking about Christmas, Cam, you had a bit of a nightmare before Christmas.
Yeah. The opposite.
Down at Capello on the Friday. you were saying to the listeners you had your works night out, obviously, on the Thursday. You were off the Friday,
Well,
so it was
yeah,
all set up,
yeah.
you
Well,
know, for a good day out for you. But
aye.
it just wasn't to be.
Nah, no, it was pretty shite. The weather was obviously pretty barking. We didn't look very good. You could maybe say at times, it looked like we were playing better than we have been, but at the end of the day, it was an awfully disappointing performance. I think even had Martin not scored late on, I think both sets of fans would have been fairly unhappy. More so, probably happy Martin fans rather than us. But I just don't know. What's happening. It didn't help. Ewan Murray gets taken off. Maybe 30 minutes into the game, injured. At which point we put our third fullback onto the pitch. A back line made up of a centre mid at right back, two left backs as centre backs, and a right back as a left back. So that was something. The big question mark being why Daryl Carrick didn't come on the pitch. I suppose he is a bit young. He has been known to make an odd mistake here or there, but he is a centre back, and if Ewan Murray is out, for a couple of weeks at least, presumably Daryl Carrick's going to have to play at some point. So I thought it was a bit strange to bring on a third fullback rather than if the boy's going to be having to potentially play some minutes. Get him warmed up, get him started. But we replied pretty quickly after Callum Ferry just give away a penalty. It is what it is.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Is I take it? I watched all the highlights of all the games, but I take it you can have no complaints.
Oh no,
with the penalty for Morton Scott first goal. It was pretty obvious, wasn't it?
It's a classic penalty. It's a classic penalty. That's the one that you see. Most of the time. The striker just gets there, touch ahead of the goalkeeper, almost holds it and waits because he knows, and then just hits it. Doesn't matter where the ball's going after that point, whether he was going to get it. He knows the keeper's about to make contact, and that's that. That's a penalty. That's the way it is. You can't have any complaints. Well scored.
But, I mean, yeah. The thing is, you just responded straight away.
Well, that was it.
And that must have been the pleasing thing.
That was it. Well, exactly. You think at that point, right? Cool. We're in this. We've got this. But he's never really cracked on from there, and never really managed to look dangerous at all, to be fair. They kept us quite quiet.
I was going to say we can't get away from just how good the winner was. It was special from Michael O'Halloran. What kind of bicycle kick, whatever you want to, overhead kick, whatever you want to kind of call it on the turn. It was brilliant. Obviously I think when I did watch the highlights I thought, oof, how did he get so much space in the box in the 92nd minute to do that? But I think you've probably already alluded to that with the state of the defence and not having a centre back. Kind of sums that up, really, doesn't it?
And don't get me wrong, Matty Shields has deputised wonderfully since Charlie Fox got injured, but he's obviously not natural there. And Fieldson was initially bought as a centre back, but Matty Shields maybe a bit less so, but Henry Fieldson, he's not the biggest lad in the world. He's not tiny, but he's not a big centre back. Again, can deputise there perfectly well. Is quite solid. But yeah, it's not the ideal situation to be defending set pieces at the best of times, really, for Queen's Park, not. But certainly not without any tall boys on the pitch.
Especially not when you're playing Morton, at Capello, when a large part of their game is physicality, crosses into the box, set pieces, out muscling people, bullying defenders, and obviously, anyway, I can sense your frustration, Cam.
I suppose the thing that was actually possibly, that started it off was obviously Josh Fowler was suspended for the game as well. So Seb Drozd was started as the striker. So by the end of the game, there was no centre backs on the pitch, and there's no strikers on the pitch. Even towards the end, Drozd was replaced by Josiah Soa. Very fast, not played too much, but again a tiny
he's like a winger,
tiny wee guy. Yeah, he's a winger. So yeah, we're struggling with injuries. Not helped even further Still losing points. The one thing I was quite disappointed in, though, was it was Grant Savory's performance. Very, after getting on the score sheet and stuff last week, I was hoping he was going to crack on, but he went missing through a lot of the periods of the game. Didn't manage to, use his little bit of silky skills and stuff that he usually does, and juking people and taking them on. He just looked completely out of sorts, and I was actually very surprised that he played the full 90 minutes. I thought for sure each time the substitutes were walking to the side of the pitch that number 10 was coming up on the board, but no, he did play the entire game. So I'm hoping that was just a wee blip, and he's going to be back to his dangerous looking self. He's actually not obviously been particularly dangerous this season, but back to looking a bit more like the player he was before, and fingers crossed we'll see that coming up this weekend, but who knows.
Yeah, especially from your perspective, obviously you'll be hoping that as a key player from a couple of seasons gone by, he'll be able to step up. We all know he's got the ability. It's just whether he's almost got that mental ability now to go and do it after being out for 2 seasons. Yeah. So, you do feel for the lad with what happened to him. It's one of those ones where it was a horrible injury. It's cost him a couple of seasons of his career. But to be fair to you have stuck by him, and it's now his turn to repay a wee bit of that faith. And we'll get on to Cam in a wee bit, but it's still 9th place for yourselves. But it's now a different team above you, a different team below you, and it does kind of change the outlook on things ever so slightly.
It's not still 9th place. We dropped to 9th.
Oh, you dropped to 9th?
Yeah, we were above Ross County and Airdrie.
Right.
Obviously,
I thought
Airdrie won.
Anyway, aye. So yeah,
yes,
does change things. But anyway, we'll go
on
to more about that Airdrie win in a wee bit. But next one, keeping in the motion of our sides, Cam, I was down at Somerset Park.
Yes, you were.
On Saturday for a 0-0. And it was one of those strange ones. 0-0's obviously never the best game you've ever been to. It wasn't like beyond god awful terrible. Mm-hmm. There were chances in the game. Just both teams just kind of lacked that bit of cutting edge in the final third. I kind of one of those games when I think back, the only way I can describe it is I feel as though we were the most comfortable team in the game in terms of overall. I felt as though we controlled things a lot more than Ayr. Mm-hmm. We were kind of on the front foot a lot more than Ayr, and we had more chances overall than Ayr. But Ayr had the best chance in the game by a mile. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those ones where I don't know if that kind of balances it out to say a draw is probably a fair result. Yeah. We had a couple of decent chances ourselves. Thinking back, Ben Stanway had a shot. It was a top draw save by Liam Russell down to his right.
Liam Russell back at it again.
Well, yeah, and it's funny you say that, right? So for the first time I've ever been at Ayr United away, the Ayr United team were warming up in front of the away end instead of the Thistle team warming up in front of the away end. And it was just so stupid because that meant David Mitchell was in the goal right in front of us. And literally just got solid abuse for 15 minutes and just bit every single time. Was pretending he was going to chuck the ball at the fans. He kept on mouthing back, and eventually, his teammates were basically just ignore them, kind of thing, So that was quite funny. And I was just kind of thinking, surely Ayr United would have known that was going to happen. It's such an own goal for them.
Especially if they usually go elsewhere. Why switch it up?
Exactly. Why switch it? But they did. So, Liam Russell and goals, as I said, made a good save that time. Logan Chalmers kind of missed a really good chance when he was through and blazed it kind of high and wide. But as I said, the best chance fell for Ayr. I think it was Ethan Walker through one-on-one, Cam, with the goalkeeper. Literally, and Josh Clark committed himself all the way to the edge of the box. He just had to find the finish, and he looked the ball high and wide as well. So it was one of those ones where you kind of think in the end of play 0-0, and with the context of what happened with St Johnstone, a point away at Somerset Park, when you look back at the end of the season, isn't disastrous.
Aye, 100%. Take that. Generally speaking, we class it as a tough place to go, even if Ayr are obviously mightily inconsistent at the moment. They're still a good team with a good home support, so it's certainly a tough game. So, yeah, you maybe don't go into the game hoping for a 0-0, but come the end of it, you'll take a point. There's still a point on the board, and like you say, in the context of the other games that have went on, not a bad point at all.
Absolutely, agree with that. And swiftly on to the next one, Cam, because this was an eyebrow raising result for me, and
yeah.
I think it's going to get to the point where we're going to need to not be surprised about Arbroath beating anybody in this league now,
so.
Because they're really showing that they deserve not only to be in the league, but they deserve to be where they are in the league. A 2-1 win
100%.
away to Dunfermline Athletic is a great result. Barney Stewart though, opening the scoring for Dunfermline, he's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Since he's came on loan from Falkirk, popped up with maybe 3 or 4 goals so far.
I've seen at least 3, but I think I know that it was more than that.
Yeah, so I feel as though he's been doing pretty solid. And at that point, Dunfermline fans were probably thinking, they'll go and kick on, maybe get a second, have a nice wee comfortable home victory. But Kabongo, Cam, 2 outstanding headers for Arbroath, and a 94th minute winner. Who doesn't love that? And you've seen the jubilation in the Arbroath away end there. So, fantastic result for them, Cam. Where do you think Arbroath's ceiling is? At this stage of the season, do you think they're going to get in the playoffs come May?
Well, like you say, we're going to have to alter our opinion at some point. I don't know if I'm quite to altering it that much yet. I think they're certainly in the position now where, as long as they don't completely shit the bed in the second half of the season, they're going to be there or thereabouts for the playoffs. It's one of those ones where if they weren't to make the playoffs at this point, it could certainly be something that happens on the last couple of games of the season. I think it's certainly realistic to imagine that come the end of the season they could still be sitting, easily in 4th place. Will it be tough? Probably. There's a lot of good teams in this division. It's not just the teams above them, as we talk about it week in, week out, any team can beat any team for the most part. So, yeah, I think it's... I think they're doing pretty well, and I'm fairly confident they have the steam to keep going. But we just have to wait and see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's so interesting with Arbroath this season. They really are, once again, the kind of fairy tale story of, many people backed them to finish bottom, finishing that relegation playoff spot maybe, and that whole, minute there, Cam, you didn't even mention the word relegation once.
No.
And we're not even halfway through this season yet. So I think that shows how far Arbroath have came in such a short period of time. And, their supporters will be absolutely delighted. They're progressing, well in the league. We'll get on to, the Diddy Cup in a wee bit, where they're still progressing well in that as well. So it's one of those ones where if you're an Arbroath fan just now, it's brilliant. On the flip side, though, Cam, that's back-to-back defeats now for Dunfermline. I feel as though Dunfermline are kind of like Wraith from last season for us, or the season before, where any time we kind of started to pick them up, they then went on a losing streak, and then when we said, put a wee question mark over Dunfermline, they bounced back. I'm putting a question mark back over them again. Surely if they want to be a playoff team, they need to win that game at home.
Definitely. Yeah, no question about it. You look at it on paper, Arbroath, newly promoted, part-time team, away from home to one of, if not the biggest home support in the league. You've got to win that game. There's no question about it. You've got a high-profile manager, a lot of money being spent. That's a game that you need to win. Like you say, if you have any real ambitions on reaching the playoffs and progressing through the playoffs and being a Premiership team, that's a game you need to win. They've not done it. Arbroath have profited from it. Again, that never say die attitude. Late goal and 3 more points on the board for them, and Dunfermline. It's starting to become as consistent as air.
I think you're noticing that wee pack there in the middle of the table of Ayr, Dunfermline, Morton and Wraith are just so inconsistent.
Yeah.
It's like one of them could, and probably will, if not 2, finish in the playoffs, but none of them are really making a case at this point in the season, are they?
No, definitely not. They're certainly, especially looking at those form tables for those teams that you mentioned there. Martin, the best of, but yeah, draw, loss, draw, win, draw. loss, win, draw, win, loss, loss. Like you need to turn some of those those reds into greys and greys into greens. You need more points on the board. You need them more consistently if you're wanting to try and cement yourself. If you do the work early, you don't need to clamber at the end of the season. But they're certainly struggling to, either get the lead or hold on to them and secure all 3 points. It's something a lot of teams, obviously Queen's Park included, struggling to score enough goals and see out games. It's something that you need to do if you're expecting that your team can play at a higher level. So yeah, we'll see how Dunfermline progress this weekend. I'll be seeing that firsthand, but we'll come on to that later on. Before that,
Definitely.
we have some other games to discuss. Next up, we have Ross County, the best home record in the league, losing 2-1 at home to Airdrie. What are your thoughts on that one?
I mean, this writes itself. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. For me, obviously, we spoke about an eyebrow-raising result for Arbroath. This was as well. And again, the question will start to be asked of, we've given Ross County a lot of respect, Cam, this season. We've gave their players a lot of respect and, how good they are on paper. But they now find themselves after, 16 games for County, rock bottom in the Championship. 12 points, the most goals conceded out of every single team in the league. They're in an absolute disastrous place. I really, really do not know where they go at this stage. They've got Tony Dock in from the disaster that Don Cowie left.
Yeah.
And things just haven't worked at all. Many Ross County fans might even say they've went backwards under Tony Dock. He's got 3 managers and his assistant, so there's 4 real leaders there in the management team. None of them can get a tune out. And I don't know if you've seen the highlights, Cam, but Airdrie under Aaron Taylor-Sinclair are just absolutely on fire just now. And they're epitomised by the second goal that they conceded. When I watched the second goal they scored, when I watched the highlights, Airdrie played really bold to me in that game. They left 2 strikers up the pitch the entire time, and their second goal profited from that. A beautiful flowing counter-attack, Cam, and it was Ewan Henderson that provided the finish. And when you seen that go in, you just thought, Airdrie are deserving this win. And obviously, Jay Henderson, we spoke about him, a lot. He's double digits last season for goals and assists. He still seems to be the only Ross County player that can regularly chip in with anything. I don't know how he's playing at the level he is and at the team he is just now, because he's a good wee player, but I just don't know with Ross County. I'm lost for words. What can you help me out? What do you think, Kim?
No, I can't help you. I mean, you look at that. Ross County at home, 38% possession against the only team in the division that at the time was lower in the league. I don't know how that happens. I don't know what they're setting up their team to be. Obviously, you mentioned the fact that there's 4 managers there. Do we think it's maybe a case of too many cooks? 4 guys who all, think, I'm going to have the vision that's going to fix it. Let's try Callum's thing. All right, okay, that's not worked. Right, who's next? Who's got an idea now? I think it's just, I don't know. It's it's a weird, really, really weird situation. I can't remember the last time we saw anything like this. Team relegated from the Premier and then going straight. Obviously, we're not saying right now that Ross County are going to get relegated down, but to drop immediately down to the bottom of the league, it's crazy stuff.
It really is, and you look at, Cam, some of the experience that's in that Ross County squad, and we know, I think we spoke about in previous weeks, there's youthful teams, in amongst the Championship this season, and Ross County are at the other end of that scale with a really experienced squad, but Declan Gallagher, their captain, 9 Scotland caps. Trevor Carson in goals, 8 caps for Northern Ireland. These are players, Cam, that have played at an extraordinarily high level, and they can't do it against part-time teams like Arbroath. I think Airdrie are a kind of hybrid part-time, full-time kind of level. They're below Queen's Park in the league, no offence. So it's one of those ones where it's a disaster for Ross County. It's everything's going wrong, and the longer it goes on, you don't know whether you blame the players, you don't know whether you blame the manager. It's difficult. The one thing you almost can't really blame is the owners, because they continually put in money. This is a good squad, so we're not looking at a kind of Rangers Celtic situation where the Ross County fans would be screaming, "Sit at the board! What are you doing?"
Yeah.
They've provided a really good team.
Oh, I've lost you, Jack.
Can you hear me? Hello?
You're back. Yes, I just lost the
I'm back.
last 3 seconds of what you said there.
I was just saying they had a really good team.
Yeah.
So it's a strange one for Ross County. It's a very, very strange one.
It is. Obviously, we're not the men that they're going to draft in to fix the problem, as we're sitting here going, don't know what's happening. No idea what's going on. But there's something foul happening up in Dingwall, and not sure what it is. Glad I'm not having to be part of it, and feel bad for the fans, really, most of all. Had a good few years up in the top division, and to drop down and look one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the division, it's not a good look for them. So I'm sure, again, I'm still certain something has to happen and something has to change, and it will turn around, because like you say, fantastic team of footballers. At some point they're going to have to start winning some games, you have to imagine.
Because the thing for me as well is I've seen Thistle play Ross County home and away this season, and obviously regularly watch the highlights, and I would say Ross County just genuinely are the worst team I've seen. The worst team I've seen Thistle play in person, and they continually look like the worst team on the highlights package. So it's one of those ones you can't even say they're in a false position. They're not. They're where they deserve to be. So, the lucky thing for them is they can still easily get out of it.
Yeah.
They're not cut adrift, but it's pretty alarming that at this stage of the season you don't see anything but a relegation fight for them.
Yeah, 100%. Less points than games played. Certainly not what they were expecting when they dropped down a division. I'm sure they expected to go straight back up. However, a team who is looking much more likely to go straight back up, St Johnstone. They had a tough weekend of it as well, didn't they? A 0-0 draw at home to Wraith Rovers. They've been in a bit of a pickle of late in general. St Johnstone, you feel like obviously they've not won a few, and even in the ones that they have won, it hadn't been massively convincing. A couple of 2-1s, and just sort of scraping them by. What's happening there?
It's the St Johnstone stutter, isn't it? That's what's happening just now. They had the defeat at Firhill, the real shock defeat at home against Cove, and now a draw at home against Dougie Imrie's Wraith Rovers. Yep. On one hand, you could look at it and you could go, well, it's a Dougie Imrie side. He's just in the door at Wraith. What else do you expect? He wants to get the ball rolling with these draws, and he has done.
Class 0-0
but at
draw
the same time, it was to perfection. I think Wraith Rovers, when I look at the stats, what was it? They only had one shot on target.
Yeah.
32% possession. If that's not Dougie Imrie ball, I don't know what
Perfect.
is. Wraith Rovers fans, you're in for a treat. But all joking aside, we have given Imrie quite a bit of respect, to be fair, in this podcast. But all joking aside, it's a poor result for St Johnstone. We go back to, they would have looked at Thistle drawn away to Ayr and seen, we could have been 2 points clear. It's a better weekend for us than it was St Johnstone, and it's one of those ones where us coming away with a draw at Ayr is much better than St Johnstone coming away with a draw at home against Wraith.
100%.
So I think overall, when you look at things from a Thistle perspective, a positive weekend. If you're looking at things from a St Johnstone perspective, definitely a disappointing one.
Certainly, definitely. And I'm just noticing something when I'm looking at the stats here for this. Let me know if this makes any sense to you. So, St Johnstone, 18 shots, 7 on target. Wraith Rovers, 0 goalkeeper saves.
Yeah, I did see that. Unless it's sometimes
a mistake.
There's a glitch.
Because one of the games that I looked at the stats for earlier, it had 0% possession for both teams, which I presumed also to be a mistake. St Johnstone or Wraith Rovers fans, write in. Was there 0 goalkeeper saves for 7 shots on target? Was it just excellent defending and defenders being in the right position? Let us know, and then tell us if what you thought of the game. I'm sure the Wraith Rovers fans looking at those stats probably wouldn't have been too happy, but happy with the result. Whereas St Johnstone fans are probably unhappy with both. You'd have to imagine not being able to score out of 18 shots and 68% possession. It's not good enough for the team that's hoping to go up as champions.
Definitely not. And it's kind of one of those ones with St Johnstone now, you feel the longer it goes on, the more it will start playing in the manager's mind, the players' mind, the fans' mind. If this will then go above them in the league, that changes the whole perspective entirely as well. So St Johnstone will just be looking to get back on, that winning way quickly. But as we spoke about, they've got a tricky away tie this weekend. So we'll go on to that in just a wee bit, Cam. But we'll park the league for just now, I think, will we? And just focus just now on the cup games that happened.
Yeah,
midweek.
So we'll just touch on these
maybe just
fairly briefly, just sort of talk about the championship teams that were playing and who have progressed without getting into too much depth about it. This isn't the Challenge Cup podcast, this is the Scottish Championship podcast, so I'm sure every team was in action. Whether the game was postponed or not is a different story. There was 8 or 9 postponements. Let's have a wee...
Oh, the weather on Tuesday was just absolutely wild.
Rescheduled to following week. So yeah, crazy stuff.
I couldn't believe when I watched some of the highlights of a few of the games, I couldn't believe that some of them went ahead. The conditions were beyond shocking, so I think firstly, Cam, fair play if anybody's listening, if you attended any of these games midweek and the weather would salute you.
Before we actually look at the games, I was thinking this on the day. I was coming home from work, and you sat in your car at a set of lights, stationary, and the wind starts jiggling your car about, and you're like, okay, it's pretty windy. Don't get me wrong, my car's got fairly it's fairly movable body. It's got quite springy suspension, so it does sort of bounce about a wee bit, but you notice it. And I remember looking, and they put up a post on the Instagram or whatever at 6 o'clock saying the ref's been out, he's looked at the pitch, looked at the conditions, game is on. And I remember thinking at that point, looking outside, and I was like, are you sure game is on? Because it's pretty windy out there. I can't imagine, it's not, it would be super rained on or flooded or anything, but I was like, it's pretty windy. The ball goes into the air and it's going off in another direction. I just didn't think it looked like conditions for football. And then obviously kept on checking, arrive at the stadium to a message from my brother, game cancelled, go on the Instagram, and again, twice in 2.5 weeks, Queen's Park cancelled the game with mere minutes to kick off. So was it not damage to the stadium or something with yourself? Yeah, I thought the phrasing was funny, because obviously they've put out the post earlier on saying game is on. Then at the post, I think it was 7:20-ish, they put out a post saying, due to damage caused in the last 30 minutes, the game has been called off. And I was like, the fact that you've put that last 30 minutes in means that it's probably already the case. It's, maybe someone's just noticed it. But then second to that, I was like, well, if it was in the last 30 minutes, then what you're saying is it happened 30 minutes ago. So why is it taking 30 minutes to let everyone know? You could have stopped a chunk of people from getting out their houses and travelling in those conditions, these dangerous conditions that mean the game can't be played, and you're waiting and sitting on this information, potentially.
As you said, it's a strange turn of phrase, that,
when I read that in the last 30 minutes, I was like, I don't think you necessarily had to include that piece of information, but they obviously felt they had to.
Because when I seen that, Cam, at the time, and obviously you'd messaged me saying just got here, game's off again, the first thing that came to my mind, and I was about to reply back a couple of minutes later saying, just heard a rumour that they've called it off because the electric seat heating isn't working in the Darth Vader stands. And then I thought, nah, I won't, because I didn't want to upset you too much.
One of the chandeliers fell off the ceiling. Oh no.
Yeah, exactly, something like that.
Yeah.
something like that.
Or even just
But
something so
yeah,
simple as a bit of debris flew in front of the door to get in, and they said that if we can't watch it, no one can.
exactly. So they just decided to call it off. But
They
yeah,
really
no,
live
funny
up to
stuff. But yeah,
the Darth
no,
Vader name.
yeah, yeah, that Imperial music plays.
Yes.
Maybe that should just be the new song that you walk out to.
That would be good, actually. I think that'd be quite good.
It would be quite
I think it'd
funny.
strike fear into the opposition. People would hear it and go, "Whoa,
Mm,
what's going on here?" And they wouldn't know what to think. And then instead of just like walking out onto the pitch, and they sometimes do that run and jump and like head the air.
yeah,
Instead of
yeah.
that, they're all just marching out in unison. All taking the same steps.
Mm, like the North Korean national team or something.
Yeah, exactly like that, but better in terms of playing football. But yeah,
But yeah, but after saying we weren't going to talk about the Challenge Cup, we've now spent about 10 minutes
this
talking about the
technically isn't
Challenge
talking
Cup.
about the
So.
Challenge Cup. It's talking about poor
Nah, I'm only
management
joking.
of football team. No, I'm kidding. But
Yeah,
yeah, no,
aye.
there was obviously a bunch of games that were postponed just 1 week, so they'll be coming up this Tuesday. We're not going to go too depth into those ones again because we've already talked about those games last week.
Exactly.
They just
If you know
haven't
your game
happened
was
yet.
off, your game was off.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
Airdrie beat Alloa away from home. A fairly good win. Alloa always have the ability to, upset the apple cart a little bit, and 3-2. So not an easy affair for Airdrie, but they've went there. They've done the business. A tough away game, and obviously, as we've touched on, pretty tough conditions. So I think you can probably excuse some of the more high-scoring games, which quite a lot of them actually seem to be. So Airdrie 3, Alloa 2. Same scoreline for Arbroath. They beat Kelty Hearts 3-2 there as well. I can imagine Arbroath's stadium being a tough place
Yeah,
to have played that game of football.
I can't believe that went ahead if the conditions were anything like what they were on the West Coast. Up there, that seemed mad, and especially knowing that the Thistle game, up the coast, up in
Yeah.
Cove, was called off as well. So you would have thought Arbroath would have been wild, but fair play, that one went ahead, and as the one down at Ayr as well. You would have thought that. Knowing what the conditions were like down this way, it would have been bad down in Ayr.
I would
So
have thought so.
the fact that went ahead as well.
Yeah, and if facing still has the facade of being a tough opposition in Peterhead, gave them a bit of a run for the money as well. 2-1 Ayr. But again, I think a lot of this you can probably put down to the tougher conditions, and give all these teams a little bit of a break. As long as you've managed to do the business and get through to the next round, then I think you've done well enough. A team who actually did do quite well was Wraith Rovers, 5-2. Again, very struggling Hamilton. I think it was just announced through the week that they're into administration again, and they're going to get a further 15-point deduction. So
I didn't even see that. That's brutal.
I just saw that it was yesterday or the day before.
That's brutal.
And then they're the director of football or CEO or whatever the guy's name is, the guy who was told by the SPFL he wasn't fit for any form of position around a football club. He's tried to appeal the decision, and the SFA were like, "It's not something you can appeal, mate. We're telling you're not fit for it." There's not an appealable thing. I want to appeal it. It's like, well, that's not how it works. We're telling you
can't appeal it. Yeah.
Get out. And so yeah, it's safe to say that the people in charge of Hamilton they've driven the club to what I think will eventually end in them no longer existing, potentially even past the end of this season. So they were well beaten by Wraith Rovers, despite up until this point in the season, obviously them playing pretty well. When the players stop getting paid, and all this sort of stuff that happens off field, it's going to impact the on field as well, and it certainly has there. Wraith Rovers have thoroughly dispatched them. Ross County also thoroughly dispatched their opposition, but their opposition being Celtic B team. I just want to quickly check, was there any actual players playing for Celtic? No. Usually you'd see one or two in there, but there does not seem to be a single first team Celtic player there, or even a single player that I've seen play for Celtic even just in one game, or I'm sure some of them have, but I don't recognise a single one of them.
Mm.
So for Ross County to beat them 4-0, and we touched on it before the podcast, big whoop-de-doo, I'm sure they'll be pleased that they won, but come on.
Yeah,
And
nothing to get
then
overexcited about.
Martin.
And I'm glad this one's
I
last,
know,
because obviously I sent that into our chat today. It was hilarious, wasn't it? I feel bad for the young. I wasn't sure who was in goals for Morton. Let's see, Murdoch. He did look like a young boy. I don't know if he is a young guy, but Murdoch in goals. I don't know if anybody's not seen it. There's a page on X called Out No Context Greenock Morton or something, and they posted, the goal that they conceded, and it was, I don't know why the ball was played back to him, to be fair, in those conditions, like the way it was, but it was.
It
And,
was
the
so
ball got caught in
brutal.
the air. The ball bounced, the keeper went to swipe at it, he totally missed it, fell over, and the Stirling Albion player just tapped it into the empty net from the edge of the box. I mean, it was brilliant.
It was class.
So, yeah.
Absolute classic. But yeah, really, really rough one for Martin. Obviously, they went on to draw the game and then lose on penalties at 5-4. Stirling Albion progressing through to the next round of the Cup. So that is obviously, without the rest of the games being played, 7 games to be played this coming Tuesday. This is the only upset in terms of the Scottish Championship side of things. Obviously, as we mentioned a couple of times there, the games coming up this Tuesday for the Championship teams, yourself, are travelling all the way back up to Cove again. Fingers crossed for your lads that it's on this time. Queen's Park, again, home game against Clyde. That will be played on Tuesday. And St Johnstone away to Hearts 2. Oh, and Dunfermline is away to Queen of the South. So, yeah, that will conclude the Challenge Cup. We'll obviously touch on the results for these games very lightly the following week. And at that point, we can talk about the next round, which has been drawn already, but we'll no bother doing that until we know who's going to be in it.
Aye.
Right.
We'll talk about that next week.
Yes. And that brings us back
And then we're back
our
to the league.
usual malarkey. Scottish Championship. Start with a Friday night game. Ayr United at home to St Johnstone. This is a big one.
Yeah, and Cam, actually, the first point I want to make is when you look across the fixtures across the whole weekend, they're all really good games this weekend. I think we've looked previously and I think said, this is maybe not the most exciting. I think this is set to be a top draw weekend in the Championship. I'm really looking forward to seeing the result of all 5 games. Friday night one, though, at Somerset Park should be really good. We've already spoken about Ayr, very inconsistent.
Yeah.
9 draws in the league so far. Lacked a wee bit of kind of class in the final third at times this season, especially shown last weekend against Thistle.
Yeah.
And against the St Johnstone team that I've got a point to prove now. They definitely have had what I'm calling the St Johnstone stutter. And they've got Thistle level on points. So it's time for St Johnstone to step back up again, but certainly not going to be easy. Cam, what are you making of it? Are you going to be watching on Friday night?
I'll watch it. Friday. Yeah, I'll watch it. Yeah. I've got my actual Christmas night this weekend, but it's on the Saturday. So yeah, I'll watch that Friday night. I think I agree with you there. Obviously the inconsistencies of Ayr meeting the St Johnstone stumble. So it's a big question mark as to who's going to come out on top there. Again, obviously we said it with your lot going down there. Ayr still, despite their inconsistencies, is still a tough place to go. So we'll see if St Johnstone are able to come out the other side of their patchy form and record a emphatic victory against Scott Brown's boys, or whether they're able to stand firm and keep St Johnstone struggling for a little bit longer. But yeah, I'll watch that Friday night. Everyone at home should tune into that as well. 7:45, BBC Scotland. Give it a wee watch.
Absolutely. And then that swiftly takes us on to our 3 o'clock kickoffs on the Saturday, starting with Thistle travelling away up to Arbroath. Cam, it's going to be a tricky one for the Jags, of course. Arbroath in really good form. It's never an easy place to go up there at Gayfield. What kind of a chance are you giving my side on Saturday?
It's a toughie. It's a tough game for sure. I don't really know. again, our growth, it's like you say, that our opinion has to switch at some point. I'm still not quite there with it, as I mentioned earlier, but it's certainly going to be a tricky game, especially, obviously, it's not a named storm anymore, but obviously the conditions, as we're still on Thursday here, still pretty bad. It's not great. Still quite wintry and windy, not massively cold as such, but if the wind's still blowing as it is at the moment, it could obviously be a fairly tough game for both teams, just trying to get the ball moving and playing some football. So might see a bit of a stop-start affair, but fingers crossed the conditions sort of chill out in the next couple of days. But no, you'll have to keep me updated on the goings on up in Arbroath and whether you manage to get that. Obviously, we'll touch on that one next week. Up after that, another good game, Morton against Airdrie. A tough one, obviously. Morton at Capello is always a bit of a scary one, but Airdrie, obviously, in much better form as of late than they have been so far this season. Obviously, flying at the moment after they've been through a few managers already. So, what are your thoughts on this game? Who do you think's the favourite in that one?
It's a difficult one again. I feel as though it's quite one of these games. I wouldn't really be surprised if any result came, but with the way they're playing just now, you kind of got to make Airdrie the interesting team in this one. You almost sort of give them this slight props of, they could come out and win this. You know, they've had difficult run though this week. I think this is a real test. They've been on the road to Ross County. They had the midweek away tie at Alloa. Yeah. So it's the third away game in a week. It's a difficult ask to see them go and win it yet again.
Yeah.
But they could just have it in them.
Yeah. No, I mean, certainly there's nothing to say that they won't. Obviously both teams technically managerless at the moment. None of them have appointed anyone officially, have they?
Not officially, no.
Not officially. So yeah, they're both still sitting on a vacant manager slot. So, we'll see if Airdrie manage to get another victory. Is that would you say the final bit of the application for that boy to take the job permanently if they manage to go away to Morton and get the victory there?
I think he already deserves it, if I'm being honest. I mean, I think with how well Airdrie have played and the results that they're getting, I don't really see why they would go for anybody else, to be honest. He seems to galvanise the squad and, he's not going to be the most expensive option either. So it makes sense for Airdrie to go with him, and it seems like it's only a matter of time, but who knows, it's football.
Yeah.
Stranger things have happened.
It's the case for sure. I think we should maybe get a t-shirt made up with that because we say that an awful lot. Up next, Queen's Park, my lot, against Dunfermline at home. A hard one to really think about. Because obviously Queen's Park, pretty atrocious injury list for miles. But Dunfermline are just that weird team that you never really know what they're doing from week to week. Obviously, they're struggling and in the last few games after having a fairly reasonable period of sort of pretty decent results. Obviously, a decent chunk higher in the league than Queen's Park, so you'd expect them maybe to have the upper hand in a general sense. And obviously, you can never really say that a home game for Queen's Park, you're necessarily going to have that sort of home advantage where you have all your fans, limited capacity. But you never know if we have Josh Fowler and maybe Ewan Murray back, then I maybe give us a bit of a chance. If we're still having to field, a basically not defense and no strikers, then we're going to struggle again. However, I'll be doing it in style. I've got the hospitality package this weekend for the game. So,
nice.
Open bar, a nice pre-game meal, a wee bit of entertainment, a speaker, we tour the facilities and stuff. So yeah, should be nice. And then I'll be sauntering back into town already, pretty slozzled on to my actual full proper staff Christmas night out. So that
but Sunday's going to be a right off for you, so it is.
Yeah, it's interesting. Luckily, I don't need to wake up for any sort of Formula 1 or whatever with that now being finished. So Sunday will just be a rest and recovery day, I think. Fingers crossed they'll
A
be
day of recovery.
smiling with 3 points on the board from the day before, but I'm not really holding any real confidence towards that fact. We'll just have to wait and see, won't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then that swiftly takes us on to our final game,
Yeah.
Cam, which again is another really interesting one. Raith Rovers at home to Ross County. You know, where do Ross County go now? You know, they've had the, you know, that win, I suppose, if you like, against Celtic B in the cup, but you know, they're bottom of the league. Things are pretty dismal and dire just now. What do you make of them going into the game against the Game side?
Yeah, I don't make them favourites by any stretch. Obviously, you mentioned they got that nice win midweek, but Raith Rovers also had themselves a nice win against, you've got to imagine, higher calibre opposition. So
Definitely.
you know, it's going to be tough for Ross County. There's no two ways about it. You know, Raith Rovers aren't in the best form of their lives at the moment either. So you know, maybe that does go in Ross County's favour. I would actually maybe say that their away form is very slightly better than their home form this year, Ross County. So maybe again, that goes slightly in their favour. But as you mentioned, they don't look like a top quality football team in the way that they're playing their football at the moment. So I don't think it's going to take an awful lot for Raith Rovers to manage to pinch all 3 points away from them. But you know, there's certainly nothing to say that, you know, that's a given and they're going to go out and do that. So we'll have to wait and see come Saturday. I think now after we've talked about them, I think I agree with your statement. If you watch the VOD back, which I know you generally do, when you say, oh, it's going to be a really good week of games this weekend, I sort of made a face. I was like, I don't know, but I think I'm with you. It's going to be it's a lot of games that you don't really know what's going to happen. So that's
what I mean. Every game's set up for a tasty one, you know, in terms of it could go literally any way. So I think it is going to be a good one, Cam. And then am I right in saying we've just got one more thing to do, and that's the predictions?
That's it. You know it.
And I don't think we probably had that great of a weekend looking at the
didn't.
results. Which, it was interesting because there was only 2 different scorelines across the 5 games. 3 2-1s and 2 0-0s.
Yes, so yeah, we didn't do well. But see, to be fair, we didn't have too many different results ourselves. Only one of us actually thought that a team might get 3 goals. And that was only one game. So we'll review now. Martin against Queen's Park, we both went 1 each. We were nearly both right. We were both wrong.
Yeah.
2-1 Martin.
To the last minute.
Ayr against Thistle, I took a 2-2 draw. You took 2-1 Thistle victory, obviously being 0-0. 2 points for me. Dunfermline against Arbroath. I thought Dunfermline were going to score 3 goals to Arbroath's 1. You thought Dunfermline was also going to win just 1-0. Obviously both wrong again. Neither of us took Airdrie to beat County, both wrong. And you took Raith Rovers to draw 1 each. It was 0-0. I took St Johnstone to win. So 2 points for you, 2 points apiece. So yeah,
2 points apiece. Brilliant.
It's really not excellent, I will say, but you know, it is what it is.
Who's kicking us off this week?
It's an even week, so it is you, Jack Curry, first up. Ayr against St Johnstone Friday night. What are you thinking?
So, first, Cam, when I looked at all these games, I said to myself, I'm going to go for 5 draws.
Right.
But I'm actually going to go against that now.
No way.
And go against that, starting with the very first game. I was going to take this as a 1 each draw.
Okay.
But I'm actually going to give St Johnstone the credit here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that they've got a point to prove.
Yes.
And you know, I think that they'll be knowing that their run can't keep continuing for this long when Thistle are performing the way that we are too. So I think St Johnstone will see Ayr as a must-win game. And for that reason, I'm going to go 2-1 St Johnstone.
Okay. 1-2. I'm certainly thinking similarly. Sorry, my wee keyboard is not doing its business. Right. I see when you were talking, I was also thinking of going for 2-1 St Johnstone, but I think I'll switch it up and I'll just go 1-0 St Johnstone.
1-0, keeping it tight and keeping a wee clean sheet.
I'm sure they'll take
and then that takes us on.
Yeah, your lot.
Yeah, it takes us on to the Saturday games, and again, a really difficult one. I think Thistle have obviously got it in us to go up there and win, and it could be any scoreline. But I'm going to give Arbroath the credit and the respect that they deserve, because they've been phenomenal. So I'm going to go for a 1-each draw.
Okay, I was actually thinking 1 each myself. So again, I'll just change it very slightly, and I'll go 2 each, because I don't see that one
2 each.
being a dull 0-0. I do say I think there'll be at least some goals, so we'll wait and see for that. Next up, Morton against Airdrie. What we thinking there?
Yeah. Again, so I was going to go for a draw in this one.
Yeah.
You know, I keep doubting myself here because it's a big ask for Airdrie to go and win 3 games away from home in a week. I'm going to say they're going to do just that. And I'm going to give Airdrie the 2-1 victory.
So I am going to go for the draw in this one. I think it will be 1 each.
1 each in that one?
Yeah. Queen's Park against Dunfermline next. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm going to go with the draw in this one. And I was... See, I always don't like doing this, even though I don't think I've ever done this and been right. So maybe it's a good omen for you. But I was going to go for a score draw, but the more I think about it, I'm going to go for a 0-0.
Yeah,
Cam.
I was also going for a 0-0, and I still will also be going for a 0-0. Yeah.
Brilliant. I love that we're both going for 0-0 in this. I just can't see Queen's Park. You just struggle for goals, and Dunfermline's form. Would they just take a point? Maybe.
I think we're also possibly being generous to the fact that Queen's Park are going to keep a clean sheet, but it's locked in now. 0-0 across the board. Last game, Wraith against County. Who's going to win it? What's the score?
Again, I think, and I'm going to trust in Diggy, and I'm going to go for the draw.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. Right. Okay, so what's the score of your draw going to be?
I'm going to go 1 each.
1 each. Okay, cool. So I'm going to give what I thought you were meaning and give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say Wraith Rovers are going to win. And then they're going to win 2-1.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love that. But yeah, that would be good for you, obviously.
Yes.
Ross County.
Yes.
Keeping below you as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't like your scoreline for Airdrie, but we'll review that now. Ayr against St Johnstone. I've taken St Johnstone for a 1-0 victory. You've taken them for a 2-1 victory. Arbroath against Thistle. We've both went for the draw. You have 1 each. I have 2 each. Morton against Airdrie. I've went for a 1-0 draw. You've taken Airdrie to win away 2-1. We've both thinking Queen's Park against Dunfermline is going to be a goalless draw. And Wraith Rovers against County, I've given Dougie Emery the benefit of the doubt by saying he'll win 2-1, and you've given Dougie Emery the benefit of the doubt by saying he's going to draw 1 each. So we'll report back next week and see who got the better of who this time. See if we can change the who's running the top of that board at the moment, if anyone has forgotten. Because we didn't actually say those additional 2 points each earlier brought my total to 76 and yours to 78. Still a 2-point game, so
very close.
We're certainly obviously losing to anyone who may or may not be playing at home, but that is much of a muchness, and besides the point, they are not in this direct competition that we've got here, so they don't matter. Sorry, everyone.
That's a lovely way to speak to our listeners
That's
at the end of the podcast.
Thank you, listeners, for making it this far.
But no, our listeners, as always, thank you very, very much. If you've listened, give us a wee like, give your team that extra bit of a chance of winning, and be sure to come back and tune into us next week. Cam, obviously you're going to be going into hospitality, so you can let us know how that goes. And we'll be back, won't we, for another episode and do it all again?
Maybe.
Maybe, if we can be bothered.
Thank you everyone very much for listening again to this drivel. We'll be back again next week, probably at some time, whether it's the usual time or not. And thank you all, and yeah, good luck for the week ahead.
Have a wonderful weekend, guys. See you later on.
Bye.